It was 1989. I was living in Vernon, British Columbia, Canada. I'd gone to Vancouver for an Environmental Youth Alliance conference hosted by founder Jeff Gibbs. I mentioned that I was going back to my homeland, Australia, after graduation. I was in grade 12 at the time. And he invited me to meet Dr. David Suzuki, who had recently returned from Australia, where I am now, and he had met some young people concerned about the environment. So there was this idea to start an Australian Environmental Youth Alliance, and perhaps I could be involved. It was a pretty exciting opportunity. So Jeff took me to meet Dr. David Suzuki, who is a Canadian science broadcaster and environmental activist, if you're not aware. And so, yeah, I grew up watching his show, The Nature of Things, which really helped me to appreciate the intrinsic value of the natural world. And perhaps it was a bit of a starting point for my love of the earth and my environmental activism. So when I arrived at his home in Point Grey, which was a wealthy area of Vancouver, he was a university professor at the University of British Columbia at the time, I remember being really struck by the collection of Aboriginal art on his walls. He had a lot of respect from the work he had been doing in Indigenous communities, and he had been gifted paintings and carvings and shields, all in the red and black traditional colors of the Northwest Coast art. It was the largest collection of Aboriginal art I had seen outside of the Museum of Anthropology, so this was back before it was popular and readily available. So we walked through the house to the back deck where Dr. Suzuki was sitting overlooking Burrard Inlet, having a beer, talking about the old times when he used to go fishing with his grandfather and that they would eat what they caught. It was unimaginable to imagine eating anything out of Burrard Inlet at that stage. The water wasn't exactly clean. And so that at this stage, he was in his 40s. He still had dark hair today. His hair's all white and still very active in his 80s. And I remember him complaining about the fish that he had seen lately, having big tumors and deformities. And, it reminded me of the three-eyed fish in The Simpsons. And he was swearing, complaining about, the premier of the day not making decisions he was happy with, that they were bad for the environment. And yeah, as much as I agreed with what he was saying, I remember being absolutely shocked at age 17 watching my idol fall off the pedestal, bitching about politicians and carrying on and just being a grumpy old dude. Well, he seemed old at that stage when I was young. And I realized that, he's human too. He's not perfect, nor did he match the image that I had of him. And I learned that the people that we look up to and that we're inspired by or lead the way, they are all human beings with very human emotions. And I learned that if we are to be the leaders that we wish to see in the world, that means being human ourselves, being compassionate with ourselves in our own humanness, and that to remember that those that we look up to, the leaders we follow, and they are also human, imperfect, and deserving of compassion. And while when I hear people pointing fingers and blaming politicians and leaders, look, sure, there's a role for accountability, and that is super important. And they're humans too. And the leader bashing doesn't get us any closer to creating the future that we want. It keeps us stuck in the divisive blame game. So what can we do? My answer, as always, is to start where we are, with what we have, with the people around us. And this means self-compassion and compassion for others. Thanks for being part of Leading the Future. So I'm curious, what are you getting from this? What does this mean for you? So please leave your thoughts and comments below, and let's have the conversation.